Now, your party has been particularly successful in some former Conservative areas, Chesham and Amersham I'm thinking of. Is this tax rise going to lead people to look for alternatives to the Conservative Party?
Well, you're right. The Liberal Democrats beat the Conservatives in Chesham and Amersham, which was a solid blue seat in Buckinghamshire. And it shows to me that the Liberal Democrats can beat the Conservatives in what we call blue wool seats across the south, where Liberal Democrats are in a strong second place against the Conservatives. And what they're doing or not doing for carers, and this breach of their election promise on tax, I think is going to turn more Conservatives into Liberal Democrats. That's what we're already seeing, and I think we're going to see much more of that.
Are you worried there's potentially an inconsistency in your message here? On the one hand saying that taxes shouldn't rise, but on the other hand saying that more needs to be done to help support and potentially pay unpaid care workers. Is this a bit of a contradiction?
No, we believe in fair tax. We said in our manifesto election that income tax should go up by a penny. We said it in our manifesto, so we're not breaking electoral promise. It's the government, the Conservatives, who are breaching a solemn manifesto commitment. And I think in Conservative seats across England, actually, particularly in the blue wall seats where Liberal Democrats are beating the Conservatives now, I think it will make people not trust Boris Johnson. I think increasingly, we found when we were talking to people in Cheshire and Amersham, they don't think our Prime Minister is decent, they increasingly don't trust him, and now he's breached yet another election promise. I think they're moving away from Boris Johnson, and with us as the key second-place party in many parts of the south to the Conservatives, I think they'll come to us. And at least we had a fair tax promise in our manifesto. No one can say that we breached our election promise.
Now, you're opposing vaccine passports being brought in, something more liberal than this government. Are you concerned, are you potentially saying that under a Liberal Democrat government, if that were to come ever down the line, that the size and scope of the state would be smaller than under this Conservative government?
Well, Liberal Democrats are strong believers in civil liberties. We've always been the champions of freedom and civil liberties. And this Conservative government under Boris Johnson has breached so many aspects of civil liberties. Yes, COVID, vaccine passports, ID cards, whatever one wants to call them, but they're also trampling on the traditional rights of British people to protest and to assembly. So certainly when it comes to civil liberties and freedom, traditional British values, Liberal Democrats are championing them and the Conservatives are treading all over them.
Just specifically on the size and the scope of the state, are you concerned that it's getting too big, largest tax burden since the Second World War?
Well, one has to look at that carefully. No one wants to see taxes rise, but if they do, they need to be much fairer than the government's proposals. And we need to see if we can reform things so that they work as efficiently as possible. One of the reasons I'm championing unpaid carers is actually they do a huge amount of work. They save the taxpayer nearly £200 billion a year, and the failure to give them a little bit more support threatens the taxpayer with a bill. The taxpayer is reliant on these family carers looking after elderly, disabled, ill and dying people, and without them the taxpayer would be in a real mess. So if you want to ensure that we're providing better care but getting really good value, you should be looking after families who are doing that caring role.
And just finally, on social care, what would the Liberal Democrats do that's different from what Keir Starmer is offering in terms of suggesting that there should be some sort of assets levy?
Well, we proposed at the last election, it was in our manifesto, and like either Conservative or Labour, that income tax should go up by a penny to provide a big bounty for the NHS and for social care. We're not changing our minds. It's the Conservatives who appear to have changed their minds, who are doing exactly what they said they wouldn't do to the voters. It's the Conservatives who are breaking their solemn election manifesto promise.
Sir Ed Davey, thank you very much for joining us here on GB News.